a metaphor for the existential theft of order. Imagine a vast savanna, my sanctuary, disrupted, like the archetypal hero losing his treasure, not to a dragon more than survival. It was a profound reordering of chaos into order, a reclaiming of the natural hierarchy. The lion's act mirrors mankind's eternal struggle.
Animal-generated AI podcasts are all the rage. Just take a look at some of the content that's out there on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and you will see that they are going viral. So I'm going to show you how you can build your own AI-generated animal podcast in a few easy steps. AI-generated podcasts are trending right now, and there's a lot of content that's going viral. So if you definitely want to get your toes wet with some AI and automation, this is the video for you. So this automation is very similar to the baby podcast creator, and it has three major outputs. The first one is the audio agent, and this one is in the yellow sticky. So this will create the prompt for the audio part of the video. Then you got the green sticky here, which is the image agent. This will create the prompt for the images. And then the last part here, which is in the red sticky, this will take all the assets, merge it together, and then create the final output of the videos that you just saw, okay? And for the image creation and video creation, I'm actually using 11 Labs, and I'm using Hedra to basically put it all together, okay? We start the automation with an on-form submission node, which is just a natively built forms inside of N10. And all I've done is I've given it a form title to enter the animal podcast requirements, and the description is the details needed to generate the AI podcast, okay? Then I've added some fields. So the first one is the animal type. It's a drop-down list, and I've given it some options: turtle, dog, elephant, lion, etc. You can put in whatever animals you want, okay? And that's a required field. The second one is mood. Again, that's a drop-down list, and I've put in some mood options: so pessimistic, optimistic, happy, etc., which is also a required field. Then the last field that I put in there is the topic of conversation. So what do you want the conversation style to be like, right? Now this is just a text field, and you can put in anything you want in here. So I put in for the second one, for the lion video, why do humans eat my food? But this is just a placeholder, right? You're not actually going to see this. This isn't the option that you're going to see when you run the automation. So when I ran it for the lion, which was the second video, I put in the conversation as I hunted and ate 3 poachers today. Okay, so that was the style, okay? Now the first step we're going to build is the audio agent. So the first node you need is an OpenAI node. So let's just go inside of here. The model I used was 4.mini, which is very affordable, and it's quite quick. And then for the podcast, I just put in create a monologue in the voice of Jordan Peterson. So I went with a Jordan Peterson style this time, focused on the subject of the conversation, which is just the field here, dragged and dropped. So I just moved that over here. Right, of I hunted and ate 3 poachers today, spoken by a lion. Okay, so lion is obviously the animal type, and the tone should be the mood, okay? So if you see on the right hand side, it makes more sense. The tone should be optimistic. Off the cuff, intense and slightly speculative with side tangents, odd metaphors, and Jordan's signature style of diving into existential rabbit holes. So if you listen to Jordan Peterson, this will make a lot of sense to you, okay? The most important thing is do not use line breaks, symbols, or formatting that could break the JSON, because I want a very defined JSON output. Keep the flow natural like a podcast clip. Output the single JSON object named podcast and limit the response to exactly 300 characters. This is important because later in the flow, you'll understand why when we run the Hedra nodes, okay? So then when you run that, you'll see here the output of what the AI has created, and there's a variable here called podcast, which is what I've set it to do. That's what I've defined, okay? The next node is a text-to-speech node, and this is a HTTP request. So this time we're going to go into 11 Labs, okay? We've got a post method here. The URL is 11 Labs text-to-speech, and then this is just the voice that I'm using, okay? If you want to know what voices they have available, head over to their documentation for text-to-speech, and they've got literally a list of audio voices that you can use, okay? Then the parameters is going to be user fields below for specified headers. Okay, make sure that's toggled on. The first one is XAI-API-key. That's the first header. Then the value is going to be your API key. Okay, so if you don't know where to get that, go over to your settings inside of 11 Labs, create an API key, and then just copy whatever the SK number that it gives you. Okay, now just kind of a side note here, you are going to need the paid plan inside of 11 Labs. You're not going to be able to do this on the free plan, because you need the pay plan for the API access, okay, which is about $5 a month, so it's very affordable. Then the second header is going to be content-type. Pay attention to the capitalization of the letters, and then the value is application JSON, okay? And then for the send body, make sure you toggle that on. We're gonna send obviously JSON. We're gonna use JSON because we're sending a payload back to 11 Labs. And then, as you can imagine, the text is just gonna be the output from the previous node, okay? It's just gonna be a prompt from the create audio prompt node. And we're sending that payload back to 11 Labs. If it's worked, you'll see an output like this, which is working. Okay, and then the next thing you want to do is you want to configure the audio. So if I click inside of here, now we're going to use Hedra. So Hedra is, I believe it's about $15 a month, something like that. And it's very affordable. So basically what you can do with this is you can take assets, multiple assets, you can put it into their platform, upload it into their cloud, and then Hedra will basically render it for you, okay? So this is where you go here in the settings here, and then go down to API, and it'll bring you to this page, and then this is where you grab your API key, okay? So this is the URL, it's a post method, the endpoint is assets, and then you want to create a generic credential type, okay? Which is a custom auth, and I just call it Hedra, okay? Then you want to send the body. So we're gonna use JSON because we need to send a payload to Hedra, and whenever you send data, it's always going to be JSON. So the body type is JSON, the specified body is always also JSON. And if I go inside of here, you're gonna see that for name and type, these are variables that Hedra needs. So I've just created baby podcast audio, and then I've just kept it audio. It could be elephant. I mean, I've just kind of used the last workflow that I had, which was the baby podcast generator, okay? It doesn't really matter. These are your own internal kind of naming conventions, okay? Then just send that over, run test step. You know it's worked because it's output of these things, okay? And nobody's gonna see this. This is just for internal use only on Hedra. Then now that we have the text to speech, we've got the configuration for the audio, we can now merge the assets, okay? So find the merge node, which is this one here. And then inside, you just want to append, and you want to grab the two inputs, okay? So if I zoom in, you'll see what it does. So you can see that the first input is the configure audio node. The second input is text to speech, and we're just putting them together, okay? So once it's appended, we need to configure the audio metadata, because this is what Hedra needs, okay? It needs a specific set of metadata, all right? And that's all this text does. So it just basically finds the first item that contains binary data, because that's what this is. This is binary data, and has at least one binary key, which is what it does, right? So all it's doing is making sure that we've got the two assets that Hedra needs before it can proceed and render the asset as one object, okay? So once this worked, you'll know because you've got this output here, and just test it, okay? Once you've configured it, you can then upload it. So this is now another HTTP request node. It's a post request. And then this is the endpoint that we're using, assets. And then you just need your ID and then the / upload endpoint, okay? So you'll see it here from the previous node. Just grab the ID, right, of the asset that we've merged, and you just put that in there. The credential type again is going to be Hedra, but this time we're sending form data. We're not sending a payload, okay, because we're going to send a file, right? So this time it's form data for the content type. The parameter type is NA10 binary file, because that's what this is. The name is file. The input data field name is data, because that's what this file is called here. It's called data, okay? And that's about it. When you test it, you'll see it here, and you know it's worked because it's now generated a URL, okay? So what this tells you is that it's actually uploaded into Hedra's cloud, okay? It's on their storage location somewhere on their cloud. You've got a URL, which means that once we come to rendering it with the image, right, and generate the video, we'll have the location that we can use for this part of the automation. The image agent is more or less the same. So start off with an OpenAI prompt. And again, I'm using 4.1 mini for this. But this time, the prompt says that I want a basically a high quality image prompt of an adult. And then you drag this one over, the animal type field over, because that's the character that we're going to use, wearing oversized headphones and speaking into a sleek podcast mic. The animal type should look serious. So in this case, it's lion. Set the scene in a cozy podcast studio with dark velvet curtains and a warm ambient lighting that brings out the animal type, which is lion. Round cheeks and sweet expression, and a big on-air neon sign behind the animal. And now again, this is a very flexible prompt. Whatever you want to do in the output, you can just set it here. And if you want to have different features, by all means, just add it into the prompt, okay? That's the user prompt. Make sure you simplify the output and you output the content as JSON, because we are asking it for a prompt to output a variable called prompt, okay? So now this is the prompt that's been generated, which is absolutely fine. And then what we can do now is we can create the image, okay? So if you create a new node, and this is a HTTP request node, the method is post. The API we're going to use for this is the OpenAI image GPT, and the endpoint is generations. The send header is going to use authorization, and it's bearer space and then your API key. So this is the API key from inside of your platform.openai.com account. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to send body. And for this, we're going to use JSON, but we're going to use the specified fields below, okay? Because this is what OpenAI needs. Okay, so the first thing is going to be model, and the value is going to be GPT-image-1, and that's what we're telling OpenAI, right? We could put DALL-E 3 in here, DALL-E 2, but for this, we're going to use the image 1 because that's the latest model. And then for the prompt, we're just going to drag over this value here, which is the prompt field that I created in the create image node, okay? Then there's a couple other things we can do in here. The first is size. So this is the typical kind of YouTube Shorts, TikTok Reels, Instagram Reels dimensions. If you're not sure what dimensions are compatible, you can go over to the image GPT documentation inside of OpenAI, and I'll actually show you which outputs that they support, okay? But for this, I'm just going to use 1024 by 1536, and that's about it. So when you run it, you're going to see this strange output, which is a base64 JSON file, okay? It's a long string of letters and numbers. Now, obviously, there's not much we can do with that. So we're going to need a convert to file node, okay? And I've called it convert to image. And what you want to do here, the operation is move base64, which is what this is, to a file, okay? And then so the input is just going to be this file over here, this field. And then for the output, we just call it a name. We give it a name, which is data in this case. You know it's worked because it's generated this. So if I click on this, you'll see the line image that I used for the video, okay? And then once we have that, we can then configure the image. So this is going to be another HTTP request node. And we're going to use header again. So it's post method. The endpoint is assets. It's going to use the header authentication. We're going to send the body. So we need to send a payload. That's always going to be JSON for both of these. And then this time it's just going to be baby podcaster image. So again, the name can be whatever you want to call it. Just make sure that the type is image, because this is the image part of the automation. When you run it, you'll see an output like this. You know it's worked, okay? So this is just generating values for inside what we need on header, okay? Then as the same as before, so you can actually just copy these three nodes here and then just duplicate them. It's exactly the same. So next one is a merge. So we need to append the two inputs, okay? Which is the configure and the image file, okay? So it's exactly the same as the one above it, which is the audio agent. And again, we're gonna have to configure the image metadata, okay? So again, it's the same code, right? And then you know it's worked because it's output this. And then what we can do finally is upload the image. So this is gonna be another HTTP request. It's a post method. It's gonna be the same endpoint, which is upload, but we need a JSON ID, okay? So that should be in the one, let me just go back to schema. It's this one here, okay? You just drag and drop this one over here and then use that as the upload. The authentication is the same. We're going to use the header authentication. The send body this time because it's an object, right? It's an image, so we're going to send the form data. It's a binary file, which is the natively supported inside of n8n. The name is file. The input name is data, because if we go to binary, this is what it's called, right? That's it. And then when you run it, you'll see a thumbnail URL, you'll see a normal URL, and that's when you know it's worked. The last step is to process and upload the video. So now that we have the audio and image assets, we can then use a merge node. So if we go inside of here, this is just an append, number import is 2, and just connect it up from the two previous workflows. The next thing we need to do is we need to separate the asset ID, because we're going to need that, okay? So this is what this code node does. It basically runs a bit of JavaScript And effectively, it will just check the image, it will check the audio, and then it will return the asset IDs for both of these. Okay, so we've got the image asset ID, we've got the audio asset ID, image URL, audio URL. Okay, that's the 4 variables that we need. And so once we have that, we can now create the final video inside a header. Okay, so this is an HTTP request node. It's going to be a post method. We are using the generations endpoint. Remember to add your generic credential type, which is header. We're going to send body. So it's going to be JSON for the content type and the specified body. And this is what we need. Okay, so we need to send this payload over to header. Okay, so this is in their kind of syntax. It's just JSON. So the type is obviously video. The AI model ID is this one here. If you want to know more information about the AI model ID, just head over to Hedra's API documentation, and there's a list of them. Okay, so you can use any of these that you want. I've just used this particular ID. Then the start keyframe ID is just the image asset ID. The audio ID is the audio ID, which is why I had to separate it out, because this is what Hedra requires. Then for the generated video inputs, we can just add a quick text input of chubby baby podcaster sitting in front of a mic, animatedly talking with playful hand movements and adorable expressions. I've just left it at that. You can put whatever you want in there. The resolution is 720p. The aspect ratio is 9:16, which is the shorts or reels ratio, and then the duration is 5,000 milliseconds. Okay, so if you want to know more information about this, again, head over to the API documentation. They'll tell you what aspect ratios and resolutions they support. Just bear in mind that if you are going to use a more higher quality resolution and you're going to change the duration, it's going to use more tokens, which means it's going to be more expensive, but also the output's going to be longer. It's going to take longer to generate that video. Okay, once you've done that, just test a step and you'll see this output here, so you know that it's worked. Now it will take some time. Anything to do with Gen AI will take a few minutes, so I've added a wait for video node. This one, it has been set to about 5 minutes, which is roughly what it takes. The entire automation end to end is about 7 minutes for one video. So I've just added a 5-minute wait module, and once it's done, it'll then output the video details, and then so we can run another HTTP request node. This is for get video, and this time we just want to get it, right? Because we've got the video ID, so we just want to get that. So this is the endpoint, and we just need a video asset ID. Okay, so it's this one here, this one here. Okay, you could use it from the create final video as well, or you could use it from the previous asset, previous node, which is wait for video. So grab this here, and then you'll have the output, which is this is the location where the video is saved. Okay, again, you're gonna need to connect to your Hedra credentials. That's about it. You don't need any headers or body because we already have the details. We just need to pull it off their servers. Okay, test a step, and then you have it here. You've got a thumbnail ID, URL. You've got the video URL. You've got all that, right? So now that we have that, we can then download the video. Okay, so this is another HTTP request module. This time it's a get, and we have it. We have the asset URL, okay, which is this field here. You just drag and drop this one here. That's all you need to do. We don't need any headers or body because we already have it. Once it's worked, you'll see a data file, okay? But there's just one thing to bear in mind. The MIME type, which is the file type, is a binary octet stream, okay? And what that means is that it's not compatible with YouTube. If you wanted to upload this directly into an automation onto YouTube, it's not compatible, okay? So what we have to do is we have to convert the file type. Now, the easiest way to do this is just to download it and upload it into Google Drive, which is why I've added a Google Drive node. So the first one is an upload. So the file resource is upload. And the data name is data because that's what it's called. I've just called it baby podcast. And then I've saved it in the root called my drive, okay? And so once it's uploaded, we can then download it, because once you download it, YouTube will automatically, or Google, should I say, will automatically convert it into an MP4 file. So I'll show you. So now we have a download operation, okay? And then we'll search by the file ID. So we already have that because we've done the upload, right? So it's created a file ID. So just drag and drop this here, right? And then you'll know it's worked because it's green. But when you run the output, you can now see, look, that the video, the MIME type is now video MP4. That's exactly what we need, because now we can upload this onto YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, because it's compatible. And then the last node is going to be upload to YouTube. So just find the upload node, and the resource is obviously a video. The operation is upload. And then this time I've just put in a quick function here for the form request just to get animal type. But because there's a drop-down list, it's technically an array, right? So I just want to return the first value, whatever I select from the form, okay? And so that will be the title. Again, you can put anything in here. It doesn't have to be as complicated as this. You can just put in, animal type or animal podcast or whatever, right? This just makes it completely automated. Then for the region code, I've selected the United States. The category type is entertainment. The import binary field is data because that's what it's called, right? We haven't changed the name. And then I've added one option for private status because I've left it unlisted. When you run that, you'll see an upload ID. And then when you head over to your channel on YouTube, you'll see this is the Lion podcast, this is the Elephant podcast that I showed you at the start of the video. Okay, so thank you very much if you made it this far. Hopefully I've given you some ideas for podcast and AI generation. This was a lot of fun because this is, like I said earlier, it is a very trending, very viral kind of trend right now. And go out there, have some fun with it. So give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Turn your notifications on, and I'll see you when the next video drops.